Well, now, the Syrian civil war has been going on for nearly 3 years now, and for most of that time there have been calls for President Assad to go. But he's going nowhere. So as the main Syrian opposition group agrees to attend a new round of talks with members of the Syrian government, should it be accepted that President Assad still has a role in the country's future? I'm joined now from Banbury in Oxfordshire by the former British ambassador to Syria, Sir Andrew Green, and in the studio by Syrian democracy campaigner Ribal al-Assad. His name's no coincidence. He's the first cousin of President Assad. And a very good morning to you both. And if I could stay with you, Ribal al-Assad. 3 years of war has not dislodged President Assad. Shouldn't it be accepted at these Geneva II talks starting on Wednesday that you have to talk to his regime and accept that he is remaining in position?
Well, unfortunately, Dermot, we have to see the situation as it is today. And we have called on him to go many times. All presidents have called on him to go many times. But the situation has changed today. Today, on the ground, we have the Syrian government on one side. On the other side, we have all those Islamic groups. As you know, there's the Islamic State of Iraq and Greater Syria. There's al-Nusra Front. There's the Islamic Front, who were the Free Syrian Army, actually. We have, that's the choice we have. It's between the ruling regime and between those Islamic groups. Even today, at the Geneva II, why do I always say that? I mean, I've been saying for a while now that it's dead from the beginning, because we have only brought on one side the Syrian regime, on the other side we have the Islamic National Coalition, who does not represent the Syrian people. Many other opposition groups were asked to come under the coalition, but this is unacceptable. We don't have to come. Any other group do not have to come under the Islamic opposition.
But just on your analysis there of the flourishing of extremist groupings, Al-Qaeda-linked groupings there, well, could Assad argue, as he always has done, well, I genuinely am now fighting international terrorism, terrorists with international ambitions. You in the international community should be supporting me, not telling me to go.
Yes, he has played this card very smartly, and everyone has fallen into his trap. If you remember the last time I was here, I've been saying, for 3 years now, you have to be careful. This is the thing that the Syrian regime would, this is the only way that the Syrian regime would survive, actually, by saying that they are fighting Al-Qaeda and other Islamist extremist groups. But unfortunately, Saudi, Qatar, and other countries have fallen into his traps and have gone on backing those Salafi extremists, those Muslim Brotherhood, and all those other Islamic groups, and leaving this the majority of the Syrian.
Well, let's hear what Sir Andrew has to say about those talks. Sir Andrew, Geneva II, as I say, confusingly in Montreux on Wednesday. Now, the opposition that are going there saying the only thing we're interested in talking about is a transition of power, and the Assad regime saying, I'm definitely not going anywhere. Are they doomed from the start?
Well, it's going to be very difficult indeed. This can only be the start of a long process. It is something that the Russians and Americans appear to be collaborating, at least to some extent. But the reality is we're not going to get a really serious negotiation until either one side is facing defeat or all sides are exhausted. And we're some distance from that. Let me just say that I don't think the issue is President Assad himself. To some extent, he's just a figurehead. If he went tomorrow, he'd be replaced by some ghastly Alawite general. The issue is the continuation of the regime in Damascus, an Alawite-led regime, and with many other supporters from the minorities in Syria. And their view is that they simply cannot afford to lose power because, the reality is, if you've got a dictatorship, you can't have a transition. Either you run the secret police or you don't. And they know that, and they know that if they lose, they'll be slaughtered, probably. So they are going to fight to the end, and we shouldn't assume anything else.
And Sir Andrew, given the growth of Islamic fundamentalist fighters in Syria, does the regime's argument have any traction that is what they are combating there?
Well, I think it does have some traction, but it certainly has some traction with the Russians. And don't forget that the people who have power in Damascus are the Russians and the Iranians. And we will not now, nobody now will be able to remove that Alawite regime by force, because they have the clear support of the Russians, who can supply the weapons, and of the Iranians, who can supply the manpower, if they need to. And we have to, I think, recognize that. The Russian view is that if this regime goes down, then there will be a chaos in Syria, which there certainly will be, and that out of that chaos will emerge Islamic extremist movements who will be very prominent, if not actually in power. And they will not accept that, because they think that would be a big threat to the soft underbelly of Russia. They're not having it. The Iranians are not having it for different reasons. So we might as well get used to the idea.
Well, let me put that to Ribal al-Assad. That scenario, I mean, the West should be concerned about that scenario as well. Do you think that that could happen?
Of course it could be. And, this was, when finally the United States had decided not to strike Syria. This is when exactly where Saudi Arabia has asked their groups who formed actually the Free Syrian Army to leave the Free Syrian Army and form the Islamic Front, Jaysh al-Islam, Jaysh al-Mujahideen, the Army of Islam, the Army of Mujahideen, who are all Salafi extremist groups. And we have to see that it would have been the biggest mistake to strike, because this would have really given those groups, this would have placed them into power.
OK, well, thank you very much, Ribal al-Assad. Now, thanks to Sir Andrew Green as well.